back to Reaper Pro Tips. Sorry for the late start. My computer and everything was very upset with me, apparently because of the update that went in. Hey, Kiki! Kiki! Where are you? Oh, you're lying over there. Okay. You want to come and say hi? Hold on. Anyway, it's me. It's Quindy. It's Justin. It's John. And it's Kiki. There we go. Yeah, Gremlin's temporarily taken care of. This little gremlin has not been taken care of, though. Somebody wanted to try to chew a hole in her new bed this morning. I managed to derail her, and I put the bed in the other room for now because I can't supervise her while I'm on stream. So we're just going to work with it. Eventually, you will learn not to chew your bed. Yes, I know. All right, Keekers, let's go. Yep. You have your bully, you have your chews, you have squeakers, so you can annoy us during stream. Good girl. Good girl, Keeker. I love you. Good girl. All right, we'll be right back, Papa. Plop. Boing. There we are. So we're here. We're here barely. Man, I thought the internet was gonna, and I will tell you, Quindy, it has been very persnickety this morning, even when I was using it on my phone. So we'll cross fingers and hope that the router reset with the reboot worked. That's what we're hoping. But yeah, so there we are. How was your weekend, everybody? I had a very good weekend. One of my favorite teams got totally trounced, but my heart team, the team that I'm secretly rooting for that's an underdog, actually won its match in grand fashion. So that's my Overwatch League fixation update. But that always makes me feel better. Also, it's getting warmer here, which makes me so happy. Oh, okay. Well, that's fair. Hot, huh? 94. Ooh. Yes, I wish it got to 90. We're supposed to get 80s, I think, this coming weekend, I think. So, that's what I think. Just an Ann. Who do I know? What do I know? All right, so, hey. I have a reminder here to tell Quindy. Quindy, and everybody, I have 2 weekends coming up where I'm going to be out of town, and it's going to be a day or two before the weekend as well, which will impact stream. I have, one second, we have our trip to Yosemite, which is David and I's Christmas present from his parents. And that's coming up, not this coming weekend, but the following weekend. So Friday, May 19th. I will not be streaming. We'll be driving to Yosemite. No walkies yet, Twisted Oma. You did miss Puppy. Sorry, Bookend Kitties. Maybe she'll make another appearance later. Oh, first lettuce. Wow, pretty cool. I almost bought some lettuces when I was at the garden center last weekend, and I'm like, no, don't take on more than I can choose. I'm already trying to keep our strawberries and raspberries happy. But yes, so stream back for Monday. Yeah, we'll be driving back on Sunday. We're just we're driving down Friday. We have 2 days in our little cabin. And then we'll drive back on Sunday. So it's a weekend with the Keekster. It's the Keeksters. It's a Keekster vacation. It's our first Keekster vacation. So David gets to experience the Keeks. So yeah, we'll see what we can do in the park. Not much with the dog, but we have there's lots of beautiful places outside the park in the national forest lands that are totally dog open and friendly, and lots of trails and stuff. So yeah. So and she'll be okay by then. So. But yeah, so, and then, but tomatoes are evil for me, Bookend Kitties. Tomatoes are my evil Crohn's trigger. They essentially can kill me, so no tomatoes. But yes, we have raspberries and we have strawberries in containers, and I'm getting rid of our lime tree because it's diseased and old and dying, and I don't use a lot of lime anyway. We're putting in a Japanese maple this week, so I'm very excited. I'm sad looking at the lime tree because it's just disintegrating in front of my eyes. But anyway, yeah, so we're going to Yosemite. And then, of course, the end of the month is Kiki's siblings, Bridget LER. So that'll be the 25th and 26th. I believe I fly out on Thursday. I have to do that because it's it's a one-stop minimum. And so essentially it takes me the whole day to get to North Dakota, which is such a crock, but it's what's real. So, but we had a zucchini, but it didn't do very well. It was planted by our previous people, but I don't want to overcommit bouquet kitties. I get overwhelmed very quickly by taking care of things. And so, I'm keeping it very, very tame right now. Very tame. But yeah, so I will be also gone on I believe I fly out the 25th. And I'll be on the 26th, and the puppy evaluation is 27th, and then I'll be back by Monday. So those are those 2 weekends are kind of compromised. After that, we have got nothing till July when we go up, which is going to be a big one in July because we're driving up to Seattle to visit David's mom for her birthday rather. Yes, and no, whatever that other day was, the 19th. Yes, the 19th. Yep, but we'll be back on Mondays after both of those. Those are just little trips, tiny little trips. But yeah, so I'm trying not to grow too many things because then it's going to take a lot of time and care and weeding and vitamizing and watering and oh my. So yes, we're starting slow. I mean, we have a ton of fruit plants already. We have an olive tree. We have a lemon tree that's very vigorous. We have an orange tree that's a baby that's just starting up. We have an avocado tree that our yard guy thinks will give us avocados this year. It's a baby. It's a baby tree. Yeah, it's a lot of work, exactly. And look at me, I'm trying to finish my second novel and still do all my Patreon stuff. And I have a husband and a puppy and a house to take care of. And I started knitting. And I paint. So yeah, I'm trying to keep it under control. I enjoy plants, but I'm not whole hog into gardening like some of you wonderful people who have amazing yards, I'm sure, and eat awesome fresh produce all year because of it. We have the avocado grande, so we have that. No, we have only, we pretty much have a very small yard. It's these funny houses in California where you've got a decent sized house, but then you've got this tiny little yard. So we have just a little space of yard in the back for Kiki to catch frisbees in, much smaller than my previous yard. And the patio, and then we've got patios around both sides of the house, but there's some side planting, and so that's where our trees are. So it's actually like a cute little pocket farm in a way. A lot of our plants are in containers, but they still will give us stuff. The orange tree's in the front yard. It's one of the exception, but everything else is small and new, and we keep it trimmed. Yeah, maybe not then. Maybe that's why we won't get fruit. I mean, we do have a neighbor a couple of houses down that has avocado trees, but I have no idea. And because our previous house owner was kind of clueless, he probably didn't even understand that he would need two kinds. So we could just have a nice shade tree, which is okay too. But there are avocado trees in our neighborhood, so we'll see. Maybe, maybe not. Oh no, yeah, the plants that have that bugs yep. Oh no, the verbena plant. Yeah, I lost my curry tree. Same thing. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, the neighbor gets avocados, so obviously they have both kinds. Yeah, Curtico, I feel you there. All right, so let's mix up our colors. We still have a little bit of lining to do, but I was also starting to do the NMM, as you guys recall. So we are, of course, painting this model in a very limited palette. We're doing a primaries palette. So we're doing the traditional red, yellow, blue plus black and white, except we are using magenta for our primary red because of Cathy's hair, because she wanted it to be magenta. So we're using that and lantern yellow, which is my favorite primary for this. And then we're using cyan blue. These guys. Them guys. And then we're using a black and a white. So I've got all these set to hand. And we are not mixing our gray via a Or did I use, I think I was actually using, was I using like Rogue Shadow or Brown Liner instead of the black? I don't remember. Trying to remember now. It's so hard. I don't think I was actually using black. I think I was using near black. It's hard to remember. I'll keep them both around in case. But anyway. You know, it's hard. It's hard to keep track of these things. All right, so we have to remix our gray. And of course, I never remember what I'm actually doing with it, so... Oh, yeah, asparagus has been crazy this year around here because of all the rain we've gotten. Like, the local farms are just, like, pushing out huge amounts of asparagus. So since this went really green last time, I'm actually going to lower the amount of yellow in my initial mix. And go with just 2 drops. Hello, Agent Marvel. And good morning, Shadow Raven. Yeah, I mean, the neighbor is a couple houses down, but I don't know. We'll see. We have lots of bees. If the bees are what pollinate it. Maybe we don't get avocados. I'm okay either way, honestly. It's going to be a nice, pretty shade tree right off our big patio that I actually spend time on, so... I am okay if it has avocados, and I'm okay if it doesn't. But we have plenty of things to worry about, so I'm like, you know, not eager to add more vegetable things. In fact, I was thinking about redoing, there's a garden along the house around the back wall here. It doesn't get a ton of sun except in the afternoons. Our neighbor tried to do a vegetable garden back there, and it was just a fail. Or, sorry, our previous owner, I meant. So I was thinking of just putting succulents in there. Totally non-needing anything. Tarzan, my day is okay so far. Kiki was being a bit of a pain this morning, but I'll deal with it. She's in the last stages of being in heat, so I'm checking her daily to see when we can... So this makes a cool kaleidoscope of weird when you get into it. Kaleidoscope of weird. So right away I can see I need... This is very brown, so I need more blue. We're trying to mix our gray for our NMM. And we're mixing everything from scratch with this model. From 3 primaries plus black and white, or near black and white. I can't remember which one it was. There we go. There's we're going gray now. Now, since it's really dark and it's hard to tell whether this is the right color, I am going to add some white. This is apparently something that Bob Ross always told people, and so does Luca, I know. But yeah, whenever you're mixing, and you're mixing a darker color, or you're mixing from colors that come together and make a darker color, it's hard for you to judge. Throw some white in there, because it's really going to let you see what you have. Even a little white will let you judge the hue. This is, I think, still very brown gray and with a bit of green in it, so we're going to see. Yeah, flowers. I just thought about flowers too. Because I do love flowers. I just succumbed to orchid again. My orchid, I had actually tossed an orchid because it was starting to really languish. And I didn't feel like repotting it because I haven't had a lot of success with them with that. So I got rid of one. That means I get a new one. So we purchased a new orchid at Costco this weekend. They had a huge amount of them for very inexpensive prices. So they got me. So I'm holding up Cathy next to it, and you can tell that this color is darker, but it's also not as blue. So we know we have to add more blue. I'm probably also going to have to add more magenta because I'm still seeing a little bit of a green shift. So I'm going to do a little bit of that. And I don't need to match my gray exactly because obviously I'm highlighting it and shading it. So a drop of magenta and a drop of cyan. We'll see how that comes out. The cyan should throw it more toward the blue that her armor is, and the magenta should shift it away from green, and that's what I'm getting. Now I've got a really nice cold gray, which is exactly what I was using for her armor. So I can now transfer some of that over to a new well and add more white to it. I mean, I know that one in Aura because I've tried to repot orchids before and found that crap. But that one was all just, it was just bark. It didn't want to reflower. It had reflowered a couple times. I mean, I can usually get them to reflower once or twice. But then they really kind of need, I think, a repot, and that's beyond my care or capability. So at that point, they do get tossed. They live longer than most orchids in other people's houses, I suspect. And as long as the leaves look happy and healthy, I'm like, okay. And I can keep them around for a while, but this one was definitely ailing, and it was just not having a good time. So I was like, you know what? I'm not having a good time looking at you, so it's dead. Yeah. Yeah, Kodiak. Yeah, so it is a time investment, big time. Oh, I didn't catch the Texas news. Oh, good, Kerniko. All right, so I kind of feel like this gray is pretty good. I might have to mix a little bit more of my dark in there. Take it down just a peg. That looks good. That looks good. That looks like my NMM color. So you don't have to be perfect on this. It just has to be close because you're adding highlights and you're adding shadows. And so you just want it. It looks very similar. And that's all you really need. Yeah, if it was sad news, then, I mean, if anything happens that affects Reaper, you guys are going to hear about it usually on the social media. So that's the fastest place, I suspect, to get any news if something bad happens in Texas, whether it will affect Reaper. Because Texas is huge. And so a bad thing can happen in Texas and be 8 hours away. And even if it looks like it's close, it could be 2 hours away. Nice! Bumblebees! Yay! Were you ever tempted to become a beekeeper, Kariniko? I am going to use my brown liner on this instead of black, I think. It looks like I used brown liner, so I'm just going to stick to that. And I'm going to line and start building my highlight colors so that I can... So I just mixed a gray without using black at all, by the way, in case you guys didn't notice. This is how oil painters do it. Just mixing usually blue and brown to get a dark that is near black, and they just use that for black. A color that isn't black will still look black on the model if it's dark enough. I need some white. Actually, I need a light gray, and then I need some white. So I'm going to use that a couple times. So clear purple. First of all, dark highlight is more of a reddish brown. Dark skin is also kind of a reddish brown. So it actually doesn't give you gray because you're not working with complements. The complement of purple is yellow, not brown or red. So if you add, the best thing you can do is, you probably need to add green, but you can add a little white to your dark skin to see the color come out more, and then you can just add whatever the complement is to that. So if you see it go reddish, you can add green. If you see it go bluish, you can add, orangish, you can go blue. The easiest way, I mean, I'm going to write a whole PDF about this, so I'm not going to talk about it very much on stream, because this is the Patreon PDF for $5 tier. for this month. So I don't want to give you guys everything for free and then put out the PDF and everybody's like, oh, you already gave this to everybody for free. But hopefully that was enough for you to work with it. Texas is big, and and a lot of people moved there cursed during the pandemic. So I think, I don't know, maybe the news is kind of focusing on Texas. It's possible. It's hard to say with our news coverage because we don't get equal opportunity coverage everywhere, right? And they tend to focus on bad things. So I like, part of me kind of doubts, like, no doubt there's a lot happening in Texas, but yeah, and it works for shading because it's reddish. Yeah, I mean, purple it's not a primary, right? So it's not what you would call a necessary color, right? Like, you can mix it when you need it, but having clear purple is like having dioxazine purple, and usually when I do that, it is to put in saturated shadows somewhere it makes sense. So yeah, you shouldn't force it. I mean, if you reach for it, you reach for it. But don't think that every color has to be used equally. That's not true at all. I use my primaries a heck of a lot more than I use my secondaries. I almost never reach for a green. I usually mix it. But yeah, almost nobody... Like, almost nobody uses all the primaries and all the secondaries all the time. I mean, when you do, it becomes part of your painter personality. So, like, Michael Proctor loves clear purple, loves carnival purple. You know, he uses purple and shadows all the time. And so you can tell his style, right? Because he has that preference. Color preference and the colors you gravitate toward and find ways to use just because you love them is part of your painter style. Like, it becomes part of your style. And of course, your style can change throughout your life as a painter. So colors that you gravitate to now, you might not gravitate toward later. Get some liner going on here. But yeah, I mean, if it suits it, it suits it. And if it doesn't, don't think you need to, like, set out... Just because you don't use a color all the time doesn't mean the color isn't useful, is another way to put it. I mean, I love dioxazine purple. I reach for it very seldom because it's not useful in a lot of my applications. But when I get the opportunity to use it, I usually plan a scheme around it if I'm going to use purple. Yeah, I mean, painters go through that all the time, right, Bookend? They talk about our classical painters having gone through that a lot, like having different color phases. And it's part of the style. It's part of it defines their style for that period. And the same thing happens with the miniature painters. Alrighty here. The shield is bugging me. All of this side of the model is bugging me because I haven't done any of the lining. Which, to make all these details become crisp with highlighting, I really need to, so. So yeah, so we'll work on that, and then we'll do some more of the NMM. So I'm going to take all these rivets, and I'm going to paint them dark with the liner. I'm just going to pop paint over the top of them. Not just the tip of them, but the entirety of them. Because then when you highlight, you're just going to highlight the upper part of the rivet. And the shadow that you've put on with the liner will help that stand out. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a lot of painters had different color phases they've gone through. Especially like Renaissance painters, but sometimes, you know, modern painters like Picasso as well. Renaissance painters often went through that and like the Pre-Raphaelites and everything because at that time, people were introducing like new pigments, right? And new colors of pigment. And so they would often like all converge on like the newest, like the new color. They would decide they really loved it. Or sometimes a painter, I think it was, I can't remember if it was Tissot. It was a painter I was reading about who loved Rose Madder, even though it was the most fugitive color ever. Like the sunlight touched it and it disappeared practically. But there was a classical painter who loved it, or a like I think a Renaissance or post-Renaissance painter who absolutely loved it, and who would not listen to the paint company when it told him, you know, this isn't going to last, right? So now when you see his paintings, like there's this washed out like feel to them, and it's because the Rose Madder has completely faded out. So they don't look at all like they did when he painted them. Yeah. Well, that's cool, Agent Marvel, because you'll like learn a lot about the different colors and what you like and what you don't. But yeah, I mean the clears are mostly for mixing, and the purple is good for shading. Although instead of clear purple, I would tend to go toward Monarch if you wanted a saturated shadow. The clears are mostly for mixing, though you can use them as regular colors. And probably the one that I use the most often is going to be clear red, because it's always my go-to red for highlighting any other slightly darker red. It's essentially my top red highlight before I start going toward pink or toward orange. A little bit gumpy there. Gonna do the rivets. Gonna do paint in the paint bottle up here. So I posted up my my Patreon $2 PDF yesterday, and it's terminology, painting and art terminology. We were talking about it the other day. I'm actually pretty happy. I did add slap chop. I added because I had other things. I had like two brush blending on there and stuff like that. But it's quite extensive. I think it came out to, it was 10 or 11 pages by the time I ended. And I'm sure there's stuff that I didn't catch. So if you read through it and you don't find a term you were looking for, you can ask me. It was a lot. Yeah. It was a lot. There's a lot of terminology, and I talk about, and there's paint chemistry stuff in there too, like what a resin is in paint. I actually would add gray. Like if you're trying to get like a color that's faded by the sun in Aura, what I usually do is add a like either driftwood brown or a pale gray. Pale to medium gray, depending. Because if you don't add enough gray, then it'll just go lighter and pink and it won't soften it very much. But you can add, and I actually talk about this in the color PDF when I talk about tones, which are adding gray to a color. A lot of people don't do that, but if you want a slightly washed out or more muted version of a color, it's very fair to just add some cloudy gray or rainy gray to it. It will soften the color. But adding a beige like driftwood actually gives you a nice faded out red. And it does have yellow in it, so it'll go toward the orangey side, but it's not going to be orange. But when I weather red, that's what I usually reach for. Is I'll either will gray it out, giving you kind of a grayed pink, or I'll do driftwood, or I'll do kind of both if I feel like it, depending on what the look is I'm looking for. Wow, she has spiky armor everywhere. I'm gonna paint in this spike in dark. Okay. I'm gonna get the rivets on the shield. But yeah, if you're looking for a, like by faded red, you mean kind of muted or like you're weathering it, like doing a faded cloth or paint color, then that's what I do. I really like those kind of, because it gives you more of an antique pink. But it's very, depending on how much you use, you can control it pretty well. And it's not like a strawberry pink, so it's not too strong. Sounds like it's been rough for you lately, Pendrake. You're just hoping for a swift recovery. Oh, that's nice, Crowley. Hey, Professor, how's it going? We're doing some lining before we start putting some more NMM on this model. We're mixing everything today from scratch, so we're using primary colors. We're using magenta, yellow, and cyan. And mixing everything from there, including this lovely gray, so, and the skin tones. But since I'm to the point of doing the NMM, I need to do my lining because there's a lot of metal on this model and it's pretty intricate. So I'm getting in here and getting all my rivets done. All right. Excellent. And then need to get down here on the leg and get that stuff figured in. Oh, and I'm leaving you might hear my phone noises. I actually have to leave my phone on because my lawn guy is going to text me with pictures of Japanese maples for me to choose one, and I don't know exactly when he's going to the nursery today, so I have to be on hand to pick my Japanese maples. So if you hear burbles from my phone, it's because for once I don't have it on silence. I'm terribly excited because I love Japanese maples, and he knew exactly the one. Like, he's like, oh, do you want one of the red ones? And I'm like, yes, I totally want one of the red ones. So yeah, I'm super happy. When I did bonsai, I always would try to get Japanese maples to go, but in Texas, they would just be destroyed by the climate. And so I was always sad and brokenhearted at the end of it when I would lose them. And I don't have the budget to do bonsai out here yet. We'll see how my career goes in the future. But I would love to get bonsai going again out here. Bonsai is like a perfect speed of hobby if you have patience and you don't like to always be like working on things. Because you don't constantly work on your trees other than keeping them watered and stuff. It's kind of a slow hobby. I liked it. It was very relaxed. Tree nerds, yep. I totally was a tree nerd. I had juniper and at least 3 different Japanese maples and a dwarf pomegranate and, oh lordy, what else? There were a few others that I tried. Oh, I hear the rain again. Man, it's just crazy watery here lately. It's raining enough for me to actually hear it. Wonder if David took his bike today. Yeah, I hope it blows over. It's just so nuts after being here during like a very dry period for the state. I got used to that and I thought that was normal. But because for several years it has been. And I'm like, it's so watery. Alright, so I am gonna line around this greave, even though it's just an angle. Yeah, it's raining here now. I just heard it start up on the roof. It's not heavy enough for you guys to quite hear it yet. But it's heavy enough for me to hear it on my roof. And I like rainy weather, But I would really like some like nice sunny hot days. That's what I'm in the mood for right now. Oh, the Japanese maple we're putting in here is going to be a real tree, though I'll probably keep it kind of one-side as far as keeping it smaller. I don't like to get anything like way above the level of our roof because I can't take care of it really. Then it's hard. I have to get the yard people to take care of it, and our roof is flat, so I don't want a lot of tree litter all the time up there. But yeah, it's going to be a smaller tree, which is great. It'll be just enough to be a nice screen and to kind of, hide our fence and stuff. So our fence is old and it's just a fence. So, it's nice to have plants to screen and not have you always just staring at the fence. Oh, good. I'm glad you got some rain, right, Shadow Raven. The thing you were trying out didn't work then, Twistedoma? I'm really shocked that they don't make a battery pack. Or maybe even a small, like, generator that has a plug. Like, you'd think there'd be something out there. But with medical equipment, it also has to be something that you really trust. I suppose that also is the thing. There we go. Get all those little details on the feet. Hello, Tyler. Hello, Valander. Yeah, bonsai definitely like creeps up on you because it's not a lot of work to really care for the trees other than watering them when it gets really hot. You can easily end up with many bonsais and not really realize you have a problem until it's too late. And then you have all those adorable little trees, so of course you're just going to keep them. Man, she has rivets everywhere. This is the Rosie the Riveter version of... Or maybe she was riveted by Rosie. So every one of those little lip rivets I'm just painting over in my liner. Ah. And if I get a little blurfy, then I just touch it up. Found her. Hey, CNOT with the big raid. Hi, everybody. Hello, CNOT audience. I'm Anne. I work for Reaper Miniatures. Welcome to our channel. I'm here every weekday morning for the most part when I'm not taking time off to go gallivant around with my husband and dog. But yeah, today we're working on a tribute figure for a friend of ours in the hobby. Jason Wiebe sculpted it. Her name is Cathy, and she was diagnosed with a big medical issue recently. And so since she and her husband are like full-time artists, we are doing the model to help them with medical bills. And they're also doing a lot of other fundraisers. But yeah, it's cool community coming together, and I really like the model. It's a really good sculpt, so I thought that I would paint it on stream. So it's Cathy with her armor against her foe. And she is a very colorful person. So I asked her what color her hair should be for this particular paint job, and she said magenta, which means that I decided to do everything with cyan, magenta, and blue, or sorry, cyan, magenta, and yellow. So we've got our cyan blue, and we are using lantern yellow, and then I'm using the magenta for our red, and then white, and then I'm using I'm using a liner, what we call a liner paint, in place of my black. Essentially it's an almost black, with has a little bit of pigment in it. I don't actually enjoy using pure black, although I can. Yes, and there's Quindy with the link to the model. But yeah, so we're doing the metal today, but in order to do it, because it's so intricate and there's so many little plates, I need to do lining first. So essentially I'm taking this dark paint and I'm outlining or filling in a lot of details like these little rivets, and I'm lining around the big plates. And what that does is it just separates everything out, so then I can go in with my highlighting and shading like we started last week. So I'm about to actually go there and start on more highlighting and shading. Alrighty. Yeah, I was checking over to make sure I've still got to do the rivets on this foot. But you see how doing the lining, see how bland you can't really see the details, and you put the lining on and you can see the details. So the lining stays as you paint. And I don't often pre-line like this. Often I'll line during the course of things. Or I'll line even after I finish a surface. But because there's so many little details here, I really felt like I had to line up front, or I would just lose them. This way the lining helps me to see the details and to remember as I move through the model, I remember to paint everything. So there's just so much. And I'm using a moderate sized brush, I'd say. Today, it's a Winsor & Newton Series 7. It's a size 0. Sizes are all different across brands of brushes. So a size 0 in the Winsor & Newton is very different from a size 0 in a Da Vinci or a Raphael. And then also there are series within brush brands, like the series, this is a Series 7 obviously. But the series is what defines the shape of the brush. So in this case, the Series 7 is what they call a pointed round, which is what most of us think of it as a paintbrush, right? But you also, of course, can have flats, and filberts and angles and all sorts of other brushes shapes. So that's why the series is important. You usually have a couple of different types of rounds even. So this is a general round, I would say a standard pointed round. But some lines also put out what is called, they'll have a standard round, but then they'll have a pointed round. And the difference will be that the standard round will have a thicker belly, which is this part of the brush right here. And the pointed round will have a longer, more narrow, more angled bristle and tip. So I don't think I've got my examples so much. I do have an 8408 Raphael. So a pointed round might look more like this as opposed to the standard round. So you can see that the pointed round gets skinnier much faster, and the standard round has more of a taper. And both of these brushes, this is a Raphael. It's also a size 0, so you can see the difference between the two different lines and brands. And this is their pointed round with the 8408. So you can see the difference between the two. Both of these are very good at painting miniatures. I might use the pointed round less for base coating and general blocking. I would use it more for detail work. So this is also an excellent liner brush. I just happened to grab my standard one this morning. Both of them are perfectly serviceable. It's just the quality of the tip that you're looking for. So it doesn't really matter. It doesn't, but you can do very detailed work with a bigger brush. And you can do detailed work with a standard instead of a pointed round, like this lining. The pointed round or the more tapered brush with a slimmer build might be a little better for the detail work. And if you're working with very thin paint, it usually helps to keep your paint under control. But it's not necessary If you know your paint consistency and you're used to dealing with your brush, you can do a lot with a brush, any brush, as long as it's got a really good tip. Morning Daffodweir. Morning Crows. Yeah, ferrules are fairly standard for different sizes, or close. At that point, it's really just the brush shape. Well, let's see. I think the ferrule for the one on this one is slightly larger. Just a bit. Can you see it, Pendrake? Just a little bit larger. Okay, I need to do the lining against that loincloth. I also haven't decided all my colors here. Obviously, the sun is probably going to be yellow. And I was thinking that behind the sun, I might put the blue. And then down here, we might go like blue magenta with a gold stripe. I haven't decided. But since most of her is armor, it makes it very difficult. You only have a few places where you can really introduce accent color. When you're painting miniatures, the bottom, there's inevitably a part on the bottom that's just flat like this. And that's just because the mold process, just leaves it flat. It's just the best way to build the model so that it will get on the mold, off of the mold well. Just always paint those dark. So I'm going to use my liner color. I'm going to paint that in, and then nobody's ever going to notice it. When you paint something dark on a model and you don't highlight or shade it, especially if it's in an out of way place, what it tells your viewer is not to look there. Don't look at this. It's not important. Same thing back here where her hand is disappearing into the shadow. I might put a little bit of wood grain back there, but here there's just a filler part right here, this big shadow, and it's flat. And so I just painted it dark because you aren't really going to notice it when you look at the rest of the model, especially with how much detail she's got. All right, I think we've lined it. I think we've got it all lined except for the sword, but we can leave the... Oh, except for this hand. Curses. Curses! Just when you think you're done lining, Cathy Wappel tells you no, you're not. There's lots of rivets and spikes back here. And there's also a wrap going around her wrist, I think. Wow, there's just such fine detail in this model. It is not for the faint of heart. If you are an intermediate painter, this would be a hard one for you. You may want to just go pretty simple and put a wash over it. Although the wash will not capture a lot of this really fine detail. But lining all this really, really delicate work is not easy. It's not easy to see it. All right, I think that might be okay. But yeah, but this is definitely challenging to line. So I'd say this is not actually a good practice for lining unless you are already pretty good at it and you want to really refine your skills. Usually when you're starting out lining, I would recommend something much larger and clunkier and with more regular, repetitive surfaces. Stuff like this that's very fiddly and intricate will just frustrate you if you are just starting out lining. Good, Asian Marvel. I'm glad you've got a store near you that's carrying our brand. That's great. And you buying it means that maybe they'll keep stocking it. So Like, when you're shopping at a local game store, the stuff you buy seriously does influence them. Especially if you buy a fair bit of it or you come, like, every week. Our local game store closed during COVID. Now we have to go down to Sunnyvale. But it's a decent shop. It's where I got these Winsor & Newton's brushes, and they have a pretty good selection. They do a lot of Games Workshop, but they have a lot of miniatures. They're very miniatures focused, actually, that particular game castle. Which is cool. Miniatures and board games seem to be their two things. Alrighty. I think we're there. I'm hoping we're there. Alright, we're just going to go for it. Whoa. Oof, all that lining. Oof, oof, oof. Oh, noes. Yeah, the internet's kind of dicey here today, guys, so fingers crossed. Alright, so... Oh, I hear the kiki stirring. Alrighty, so just looking at my highlights here, and I'm gonna pop them up a little bit here on her hip. Yeah, the problem with Reaper for many game stores is that our collection is so big. And the people who are looking for Reaper are usually looking for a very specific model. So no game store has the wall space to carry enough character models to have the right model for everybody. And if you did, you wouldn't be selling a lot of any given thing, right? That's the problem, I feel. And it may be why our internet orders are so high. Some stores do commit heavy to Reaper. And if they've got a big role-playing game like community, then I think it can work. But it can get, and if people don't mind like ordering stuff through the store if they need a specific model. But I think it gets very difficult as a game store to find enough room to offer enough variety. Like, what do you sell, right? So that's the problem when you have a lot of choices, and when you it's actually, I kind of feel like for Reaper, the advent of internet shopping may have really influenced our business development because of that, because it's so hard for a normal game store to carry enough variety. So the fact that the internet is now the most powerful player in shopping actually helped Reaper probably become bigger and expand, along with the Kickstarters, because people are used to ordering online, and we have a very fast turnaround on our shipping. We try to keep it very, very fast, and so it's easy for Reaper to keep everything in stock because they have a giant warehouse. So then online, you have this store that is big enough to have all the stuff. It's the same thing with bookstores and Amazon, where a bookstore used to have maybe they would carry, I think, 125,000 at most. The really big Barnes & Noble stores would carry 125,000 different titles, and there were like 4 million in print, you know. So it's just always the retail space problem when you have a market that's full of cool stuff. It's just how do you curate it, right? It's the challenge that bookstores face now. And sometimes I'll walk into my local bookstore and I'll look for a very well-known author, and I just won't find them. Just because, like, maybe that bookstore, like, doesn't have anybody who's a fan of that person, or it's not quite the genre niche that they carry, or whatever. And so it's weird because even, like, big name authors, like, end up not on the shelves sometimes, just because. I went to a couple of independent bookstores when I was looking for my Cory Doctorow book that I wanted him to sign for me, that I already had on audio. And they would carry like one of his books, but they wouldn't carry the book I needed, even though it was newer. So it's just, and it's the same with miniature stuff. Like, how do you choose? There's so many amazing miniatures on the market. How do you curate? How do you choose? Yeah, they try to turn it around fast. Like, that was something that Ed and Dave, I think, worked hard on. Yeah, that's for sure. Then Inara, that's good. It's when there's a big D&D community, that's when you see a lot of Reaper, because then it makes sense. But yeah, Reaper strives to, knowing when Ed saw what Amazon was doing, Ed was like, you know what, that's going to be the standard. That's going to be what people expect. And if you don't at least try to turn people's orders around fast, like, they're just not going to be happy. And so if you can turn them around, it's faster than they expect, and they're really happy about it. So yeah, Reaper strives to turn around things very, very quickly. I think a lot of companies nowadays are doing that if they can. I placed an order for soaps, handmade soaps from my favorite soap company recently, and they turned it around really fast too. And they're in Tennessee. I love soaps. Handmade soaps are one of my addictions. Yeah, nice. Yeah, when you're on a hub, when you're close to a hub, Valendar, that's totally the case. I know we get next day and sometimes even same day stuff from Amazon. Yeah. Yeah, Reaper has a warehouse in the UK, a shipping center in the UK, Rex. But it's in the UK and not in mainland Europe. All right, we're going to take our white and we're going to punch it up a bit on this hip. We need to get it up to pure white. We need to make it pretty punchy if we want it to be shiny. That's why I put a really sharp white up here on the breastplate. Yeah. Yeah, I wonder why that is, because I noticed that a lot on paint racks. Not just Reaper, but every other companies too. When I go to a game store, where it's just like a lot of empty spaces, where you can tell the brands that don't sell because they're the ones that don't have empty spaces. Nothing with a beard. And something with lots of skin. Valendar. I might even consider using like one of the dancing girls. Or a barbarian, or a trying to think of other models that might have lots and lots of skin. But usually with very dark skin, it works a lot better if you have more of it. Because if you only have a tiny bit, it's very hard to have it carry. And facial hair is like really brutally hard. Because then your skin is so small that trying to make the face stand out is just a horrible trial. We'll start blocking in the light over here on the other side of the breastplate, and then I'll move probably down this arm. Well, I mean, there's a couple of models that have like more of an ethnic African kind of face shape that were put out last year or the year before. There's a mage and a warrior, barbarian warrior. We could use them for either, really. And then Dark Sword also has some. I'm going to lighten the top of Cathy's shield completely with a light gray. And then we're going to bring up that white to a sharp point here and here. I mean, you mean Jolie the Scribe? Or I don't know which models are which at this point. I mean, she's got a lot of skin. Because you're really, yeah, it just depends. It depends on if you, if you're just looking to demo the tones or if you're trying to paint a more ethnic appropriate facial composition. So here I have to ask myself if I'm going to make this a very shiny shield. If I'm going very shiny, I have to bring in my shadow like just on the underside of this, almost like Sky Earth. If I'm going more like I went with the armor here, I can still go shiny, but I want to burnish it a little bit more. So I'm going to give just a little bit of gray going on the underside of my white here. So I blend it in before I hit my black. Yeah, sadly we cannot see your collection, so we cannot be greatly helpful there. So yeah, so you can see I'm fading in this a little bit down here, and then we're going to throw the dark right after that. Then we've got our shadow down here. And again, I'm going to blend in the shadow a little bit as well. And because this shield has a definite edge to it, we can do the edge trick and do a white highlight all the way around it. I mean, in that case, since I can't see your collection, the best I can say, Valandar, is nothing with facial hair. Because you want to be able to bring out the features of the face on it. And almost, I would say, the best one, honestly, would be the Fire Giant Queen. Since Fire Giants are usually painted with dark skin tones, but she doesn't have any facial hair, and it's bigger. So you can really show the colors that you're using. I'm using the side of my brush here, guys, to edge highlight this. But yeah, whenever I'm doing something like where I'm really trying to show how to construct skin tones, especially with dark skin tones where you have to, you know, where it's challenging at small scales to bring out the features, I often think about using a giant, if I can find one without, usually female giants will be the ones without the facial hair, obviously. If I can find a bigger model without facial hair, ogres work well too. Hello, Polly. How's it going? We are doing a non-metallic metal on this figure. It's a tribute figure for a lady in our community who's going through some medical troubles right now. So she is painted up, armored up to go against her foe. And I'm working on highlighting the edge of the shield here, placing the highlights appropriately. So I need a highlight right up on top because the light's coming down from above. I also need a highlight here at the edge because as it moves around, the light, essentially the edge of this acts like a mirror. So when the mirror is pointing toward your eyes, when it's like, pow, that's where you get that highlight. If it's down here, the highlight is pointing toward the ground, so obviously that's not right. So if you think about it that way, that the metal surface is like a mirror, which it really is, it's going to reflect light at your eyes, and when it tilts and reflects that light at your eyes, that's where the highlight goes. Alrighty. I also want to hit this knee a little bit more. There. Alright. I'm going to go around and hit these rivets also. Although, you know, the problem with not having done the general highlighting before this is that now I have to paint around these rivets, which is really annoying. So I could just ignore the rivets for now and paint the general highlights around the rounded face of the shield here. This isn't going to be a challenge. It's going to roughly follow what we've already got. The upper part is going to be lighter. So let's just block that in with our light gray. So yeah, Polly, if you are new, I'm Ann. I work for Reaper. We do this stream every weekday morning. And if you have any questions, ask. Even if you're a beginner, I like answering questions from everybody. I've taught at all different levels of mini painting. I also have a Patreon, which is patreon.com/paintingbig, where I put out a lot of PDFs and videos. So I'm just going to highlight, thank you for the spam there, Quindy. And if you're a beginner, I also have, if you go to my YouTube channel, I have a Fundamentals of Mini Painting series that I've done a lot for. So here I'm just like looking at the top part of the shield here, and I'm bringing this light gray in. Her shield is more or less held horizontally, but it is curved. So the top side is pointed slightly up and the bottom side is pointed slightly down. And when I get to this side right by the highlight, I'm going to stop. And then I'm also going to have a highlight back here, and it's probably going to be around there. Spam is your specialty. Okay, and then I'm going to grab my white. And mostly I'm worrying about highlights right now, rather than shadows, because my lining actually serves as a lot of the abbreviated shadow, the very efficient shadows. And then I will bring in other shadows, as I did down here, as I go. Free from spam. So my novel promotion, I think ends tomorrow. But I think I'll check it. My kind of goal was like that I would consider it definitely a success if I had 25 new people download my book, and if I end up getting a couple new reviews, and if I get a couple of people on my mailing list. So some of that will take time because obviously you can download the book and not get to reading it right away. But by the end of the month, I think I'll have an idea how it went. I do know that I've had I think 20 or 21 downloads, so that's great. Almost. That was as of Friday, so I haven't actually checked over the weekend. So we'll see. They are still tiny though. The faces are really not much bigger than a standard face, I find. I guess some of them maybe. They're almost chibi-ish, I guess. You could use a chibi too, Valander. One of the Bonsylvanians. But yeah, I mean, if a kid adventurer, if you find one that you think has a big enough face, go for it. Are you leaving, Crowley? All right. Have a good meeting. Oh, are they? Okay. Well, then go for it, Valander. Yeah, I remember getting them out and just being kind of like the bodies are very small. Just like with chibis, that bothers me. I don't enjoy painting it, so. Because sometimes the detail just isn't there, I feel like. But if the heads are bigger, then yeah, that makes sense that it would fit for what you want to do. And grab some gray and blend in some of this white. It's a little bit too blocky, choppy. Ron won't be on. Yeah, I'll go for a little bit. I do need to get out and get the papa played with in my walk-in because I've been very bad about not getting my walk-in since I can't walk with the papa right now. Some days I've just let it slide and I feel like a slug. My mom was joking about that the other day because she's the same way. She felt like she had little slug antennae starting to grow out of her head. I told her she better walk quick then. Yep. Yeah, I went half slug on the weekend because my Overwatch League was on. And one of the days the match went very late. But yesterday I did get my evening walk in. Thing is that my walks are so integral to my mental health that when I skip off of them or I feel like I'm not getting enough steps or movement into my day, I actually kind of suffer mentally, emotionally. I rely on it for a boost of endorphins, I guess. All right, so I put my light gray on the rivets there, and I'm going to actually hit them with white as well because they're standing out. So yeah, I still try to do my walks on the weekends. Except Sunday, I'm for my writing club. I still walk, but I walk more down. I walk down the street to get a pastry. Yeah, that makes up for it, right? I go downtown and I walk. I park far away from the pastry shop and walk to it. But I have to do Write Club to get a pastry. That's my pastry limitation. have to put down the words. I imagine today the rain will be on and off and will mostly be sprinkles. Looks like it's still cloudy out. All right, so we've got our rivets, we've got our top. A lot of this won't start looking like really right until everything is done. Because you need, like, if you've still got these like blank shoulder pads, it's like, can be a little off-putting as far as the NMM looking right. Getting just a little bit of these edges kind of sketched in here. Yeah. I was mopey last week. I was like having a hard time. I was struggling with my book, with book 2. Just struggling to stay like in it and focused. And part of that was just not getting the exercise, I think. All right, the shoulders here are weird because there's kind of like a strap and a divot, and I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be doing with that. So I may just paint those divots dark, like she's wearing an under cloth to keep it all from chafing. Because it feels like there's like a strap in here. There we go. I think that's all right. Well, feels like you could museum wax an army then, Valandar. Better get yourself more painting handles. So the collar here is a bit rough. I'm going to highlight right up here on these points that come up by her face. Then I'm going to put shadow there. Then I'm going to hit another highlight down here in the dip where the light will hopefully catch. And then pop another highlight over on this side up by her face. And that should work. I had hoped for sunshine today, but I guess I'll just have to suck it up if it's going to be cloudy. At least it's going to be in the 60s. I like my rain, but there is a point where I will just be like, come on, world. Where's my summer? Well, that's good, Gwendy. Obviously, you needed the sleep then. I've been challenging myself lately to ask whether I really need the power nap. Like, because I'm in the habit of taking one. But yesterday I actually felt really energized, and I was like, you know, I really don't need to do it. So instead I just like relaxed and did some like knitting and stuff when I was feeling tired. And then I perked right up again. It's nice to have a flexible schedule where I can do that, where I can say, you know what, I'm hitting my energy downturn for the day, so let's take it easy for an hour, and then I'll have energy again. Yeah, Inara. Yep, to each their own. I mean, the rain is nice because everything isn't dried out here. Like the brown mountains are still green. The trees are all super happy. There are crazy amounts of things flowering out here right now. Everything smells very flowery in my neighborhood. All right. Okay, how the heck are we gonna try to get these shoulder pads? When you've got a lot of detail over the top of the metal, it gets very hard to figure out how to do them. It's much easier to do a blank shoulder pad. Yeah, I used to do that too when I was really close, Squindy, before I had the doglets. I used to do power nap. Sometimes I feel like I really need one. Like if I don't get good sleep, then I definitely need a power nap in the middle of the day. Usually around 3:30. And then I'm up again and I'm good to go. So we're gonna try to like define this rounded surface. And it's just difficult to define shapes when you've got this emblem in the middle of it, but we'll try. Yeah. Yeah. That's nice, Asian marble. Yeah, I like it when it gets warm enough not to trigger our heat in the morning but it's still like cool enough to sleep comfortably. Though now that we have the portable AC, once it gets hot, we can move that into the bedroom, and Kiki will be happy to have her cold room again. So I'm trying to keep this rounded highlight shape, essentially. And I'm striving to kind of keep that a thing in my light gray. Because I want to be able to see that this is a rounded surface, and the way to do that is to keep the highlight round. So that's mostly looking right. Whew. Yeah, I just feel like I need my nap, or I need my not nap. I feel like I need my exercise now. Alrighty, so I'm gonna hit this lower edge because it definitely stands out. Kind of got that. I'm gonna put a shadow in there. What was that bark, Keekster? The squirrels were rattling around on the roof this morning, and you didn't bark at all. Woof, she says. Woof. Woof, Mom, woof. I heard something suspicious. Did you hear something suspicious, Bob? Yeah, do you want to come say hi? Do you want to come say hi to the peoples? Okay. I've got that blocked in. I'm going to go and see if a Bork dog wants to come in and say hi. 1 second. Hey, Bork dog, you want to come in and say hi? You want to come in and say hi? Say hi. Yeah, hi. Here, let's get up on the chair. Let's get up on the chair. Up. Kiki, up. Yeah, good girl. Yay. Yay. Good girl. Good girl. Yay. Sniff, sniff, sniff. Sniff, sniff. It's my brush. Yes. Yes, little girl. There's a keeker. Yes. You know a guy whose last name is Bork. Oh, dear. Oh, dear. Bork, Bork, Bork. All right, Scritchy girl. All right. No, you can't have my water. All right, you off? Good girl. Yay. All right. Time to go out. Yeah, well, I guess it is almost time, huh, Papa? Okay, well, let me just, get through here and put one little highlight on, and then I will come out. And we will go play, okay? Good girl. I'll be right back. He's like, hey, you're going late. Bork, Bork. Bork, Bork, Mom. Bork going on your list for NPC names. Yes, yeah, caramel and espresso is what I call it. Agent Marvel. All right, I'm going to put a white highlight on that, that rounded highlight, and then we'll wrap it. She's just a big pupper. Such a silly girl. Total silly. All right, so we need to focus our light. Oh, that's a very bright light. Blend it in a little bit. So I'm going to kind of keep this a little bit. Again, try to keep it round. And I'm going to edge highlight with my white. And this, by the way, is why we don't always just mix everything by hand, is that wouldn't it be nice if I just had this gray pre-bottled so I didn't have to mix it every time? And thus was born Hobby Paint, where you have every little color that you might want so that you don't have to mix it by hand, folks. This is exactly the reason we have what we've got. So everybody who's just nose in the air going, oh, you're not a mini painter unless you learn to mix color. Yeah, well, screw you guys. Sometimes you just want to get it out of the bottle and not have to mix the dang thing every stream. She'll change a bit. Not a lot, though, I think, Agent Marvel, although she hasn't actually blown coat. But I think with sables, her color pattern, they tend to get lighter in the summer and darker in the winter. Leo always did. That was my other... Leo was almost the same color as her, my first Shiloh. He was also a dark brown sable. But he had a lighter face instead of a darker face. Like she does. So get a little bit of edge highlights. But yeah, right? Because can I mix my own grays to do this from cyan, magenta, and yellow? Yeah, I can. Do I want to always do it? Not really. But yeah, sometimes we call sables our butterfly dogs because of that. Because they change so much from the point where they were a puppy to when they get their adult coat in. And they also tend to have a little bit of seasonal change going on. It's why sable, one of the reasons why sable is the most popular color of Shiloh. Although, of course, you can have very different colors. Because there are brown sables like Kiki, and then there are golden sables like Kiri's brother Chester, and there are gray sables, which are very wolfy. And that was my Blazy. She was a gray sable, Kiri's daughter. And I really like the gray sable, especially with a smooth coat. Alrighty. David told me this morning, can't we trade Kiki in? And I'm like, you want another puppy? And he's like, no. I'm like, I thought you would reconsider that statement. We finally got Kiki to not be a complete mouthy, like, dingo. And she mostly doesn't jump up anymore. Like, and you say you want to trade her in on another new puppy? I'm like, whoa. Like, what insanity has taken over my husband's mind? I'll bet you anything, if we have puppies, I'll bet you anything he totally gets suckered in and wants to keep one. So remember this for if Kiki has puppies. I do need to start looking for a hip x-ray place for her. Because I just want to know whether I should start planning or not. Planning for puppers someday. Yeah, because to do a Renaissance restoration piece, they did grind pigments in those days, so you want to use that. You don't want to use, right, you want to use what they actually would have used. Yeah. Only one. Well, I think he's pretty sane on that, Kerniko, because he does not want more than 2 dogs. He'll let me have my second puppy. Like, that's why I want to breed Kiki to it. If we do get to the puppy point, I want to breed her to a smooth coat because I want to keep a smooth coat. So, I want my second Shiloh to be a smooth. That's it. And if I can, I want it to be from Kiri's lines. Those are my two necessaries. After that, we may be done with dogs. After those 2 pass. Yeah. But yeah, so we'll see. We'll see. Puppies are a lot of work, so but I'll be doing most of it, so I'll hook him in a little bit, but all right, so we got about a bit done. We've got a shoulder that is partially done, needs shadows, but and needs its rivets highlighted and stuff. But it's getting there. So now across the chest and the shield, the part of the shield, we can kind of see the NMM coming through. It is very shiny, which is great. I wanted it to look very shiny and new. So we're not doing any weathering on this one, at least not yet. What is her base? Is her base flagstone? It's kind of brickstone. We'll have to decide if we keep her on this base. I kind of want to put her up on a big like stone. I kind of want her standing on a boulder or standing on top of something. So maybe we'll cut her off this base. Because I don't really want her on a flat base. I feel like she should be standing on top of the pinnacle. That kind of thing. Dramatic Cathy. We want dramatic Cathy. So yeah, but yeah, her NMM's coming around now, so that's great. So we'll keep working around this. Now that I have everything lined, it'll go a lot faster. You could expect that. So we'll cover a lot. We'll try to hit the rest of the front and the shoulders, I think, next time, and then we'll start tackling the back. Of course, because she is mostly NMM, once we have the NMM done, we're mostly done with the figure. So, too hard to sculpt, Melandar. Too hard to sculpt. But yeah, so cool. Thanks for showing up, folks. Now we've made up our time. Tomorrow, speaking of being almost done, tomorrow is Sophie Day. We were working on the gold. We got the silver coif figured out. We were just like working on the last of the brass / gold so that we can put her wings on. I also haven't finished her eyes, so there's that. And then I was going to think about what I might want to do for her basing. So, I mean, she's fine on the cobblestones, but maybe I want to do something for her. We'll see. We'll see what we do. We can think about it. All right, peeps. Thank you so much for hanging out. Quindy, I'll text you those exact dates to just to remind you on the Discord that I'll be taking the days off. I want to double check my flight for the LER. I'm pretty sure I'm out Thursday and Friday. But yeah, thank you very much, and we will be back tomorrow morning for the Sophie. Oh wait, we have our Sophie base. I forgot. That's right. We were gonna sculpt in some things to make sure she's got places to stand and stuff. I almost forgot. Well, now I know. I've been reminded. Thank you all, and yeah, we'll be back on it tomorrow, and have a great one.